Hey, welcome to the Crazy J Podcast Show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am going to do a little podcast about the sports. We're going to talk about the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Pistons basketball. I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty, just go basic on you kiddos today. We got to start with, first of all, we got to start with uh, the Detroit Lions. All right. Detroit Lions, as you guys know, Brad Holmes talked about uh, David Montgomery and ideology that he may not be with Detroit Lions next year, and they may not continue with this contract that he's through to 2027. It's just one of those things that a lot of people are kind of upset by. I think that, in my point of view, I'm going to say this from my standard, is that I think Detroit uh, had a lot of nick and knacks of the offseason last year. I think they had issues with John Morton. He's been fired from his job in Detroit. About time, right? Dan Campbell took over the offense, a play call, and it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was just a lot of work for Dan Campbell. However, I do think that because of Dan Campbell had to take over the offense call, we had issues with the fact that we weren't running both the running backs, uh, Jamal Gibbs and David Montgomery. And clearly, David Montgomery took the beating of the two and not being participant in play calls during the regular season or any of the season because Detroit didn't make the playoffs. All right. So obviously, when you have a fresh new play caller, Dan Campbell, you have someone that is trying to balance both offense and defense and helping Kevin Shepard out. You take away the rest of the playbook. And the playbook that you can't really concentrate is both of the running backs in the game or one or the other during the game, and you take away a lot of things that didn't happen. You didn't throw the ball to the tight end. Sam Laporta was out, and then during the regular season, it just seemed like Jamal Gibbs just kind of took over the load of the passing, running, and everything else, and it just didn't pan out. However, I will say this: I do think that Detroit Lions should keep David Montgomery, and I think that the reason why they should is that it's the balance of the beam. You have two guys who can work together real well. You're just going to have to find yourself a new offense coordinator. Now, I am going to talk about this guy first, and this is obviously Nate Shawhouse. He's an office coordinator for the LA Rams. Sean McVay's understudy. We could call him that in itself. 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns in the season. And you have Matthew Stafford. Now, with this type of guy, you're going to bring in and you can renovate the Detroit Lions offense. And you will have an opportunity so that Dan Campbell and the defense can go back to what they do best. And when you have a young person like this, Nate, who will take over the offense, it could be a fresh start. Sign him for 2 years. And the reason why I say 2 years is probably because he'll probably leave within those 2 years. The contracts of Detroit Lions players are within 2 to 3 years. So, I mean, I know they're really 3 to 4, but if you count next year, if you take off this year and next year to put together, it's just 2 years. So this Nate Shaw should be a good pick for Detroit. I don't see the LA Rams really uh, let him go. I think they'll match the price for him if he has an option to come to Detroit. I didn't hear much about the fact that they had any type of interviews with him, but I know that this would be probably a good pick. You could probably not have to pay him a lot of money, and then just have him come in for 2 years, help David Montgomery, Gibbs, uh, and Jared Goff. The one thing I am concerned about having a guy like this is because he's going to have to heavily rely on the idea that Jared Goff is not your mobile quarterback, along like Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford will run about a little bit, make himself available, keep the ball in his hand, scramble more, and then obviously he's completed a lot of passes and that scrambling way of doing things. With Jared Goff, it could be a problem. Maybe his playbook would kind of shrink a little bit, but having Sam Laporta back, Detroit getting a couple new offensive line guys could make the world difference. The other guy that I would talk about is, this could happen. You got yourself uh, Mike McDaniel, and he's obviously got fired from uh, from the Miami Dolphins. I got this picture of him through the net, and I put a Detroit Lions background to it, and it's like maybe it's a good idea. And the reason why I would pick him over Nate Shahas, because Nate Shahas will go probably get a full time head coaching job, even if it's not in the NFL. I think with McDaniel, he'll have to prove to himself again and to the rest of the league that he can still make the play calls. He didn't have a really Cinderella year with the Miami Dolphins. Tua clearly wasn't the player that he was in the past. With those type of concussions and going on, he didn't. I don't think he've had any concussions this year, but it could have played into the style of Miami. And I feel like a guy that would come to Detroit, he would only have to concentrate on on being the offense coordinator. He could readjust it. He's had a quarterback like Tua that may have not wanted to run no more. And with Jared Goff, he does not run at all. So it could fit in with with Detroit. And I think that with this guy, you sign him for 2 or 3 years, he'll leave with a new full time job if it all goes well. Now, for Dan Campbell, it'd be a blessing to have him because he used to be a head coach. He knows all the ins and outs of everything. Not so much of Detroit Lions game book, playbook, but the fact that he would have it so that he just wouldn't have to concentrate on things that he doesn't have to think about. Now, he could be an influence to Dan Campbell in kicking the field goal or going on fourth down. And that's always going to be an issue with Detroit Lions about the fourth down conversions. I do want to talk about uh, the Detroit Pistons. And the reason why I want to talk about Detroit Pistons is because they're having the year of the quarter of the century. Yes, they won in 2004. They went back to the finals in 2005 and lost it. But in 2004, they won it, the NBA Finals with uh, Larry Brown and Ben Wallace and Chauncey and Richardson and everyone else. But this team, 2025-26 season, is looking really, really good. The reason why I want to bring this up is because we want to talk about this guy, Jaden Ivey, and he's a question mark after coming back from his injury from a year ago. He is not starting. He is even with Cade Cunningham been bench and rusting, which I kind of disagree with that, but rusting. You think Jaden Ivey would be uh, taking over the team? You want him to be able to score points on his own will, but it hasn't happened. And a lot of people say, "Well, he's shooting. He's got 8.3 points per game. He's shooting 45%. He's making 1 3 pointer out of three pointers per game. Uh, his 3 point percentage is 33%. Rebounds 2.2, and the turnovers are 0.9, with the assist to be 1.8. Now, the thing that I want to say is that you got Dennis Jenkins, who's rounding about the same amount of minutes that Jaden Ivey is, and he's scoring 7.6 per game. Uh, his uh, his field goal percentage is at 42.8%. He's making 1 3-pointer out of 2.5 average that he takes. His 3-point percentage is 39%. His rebounds is lower, and his assist is higher, 3.3. He seems to be able to see the court better than Jaden Ivey. And I think that we have an issue in our hands because we also have Marcus Sasser, who is averaging 5.2 per game, 50% field goal percentage. They don't play him a lot. They play him about 8.8. They play him about 8 minutes per game, which isn't really a lot. He takes about 2.3 3-pointers, 1.1 makes him, and then he's got the assist is 1.9, the rebounds is 1.1. Now, one thing I've noticed about Sasser and even Dennis Jenkins is that they're moving without the ball. They're able to get open. They're able to find a open player. They're able to make a play. And what I see with Jaden Ivey, he's not doing that one bit. He really isn't. Now, use another example of another player, Karis LeVert, a Michigan player, eighth year, 8.3 points per game, a lot like Jaden Ivey, 43.9%, a lot like Jaden Ivey. He's also shooting about 3.3 3-pointers, a lot like Ivy, making about 1.2 of them, 37%, which is higher than Jaden Ivey's 3-point percentage. Rebounds is a little lower, 1.8 and 2.9 assists per game. So even he is seeing the court a lot better. And you know what? I could say something about Ronald Highland. And I think when I say Ronald Highland, I'll say this about him is that he plays the way that Jaden Ivey wants to play. He wants to go to the basket. He sees where the ball is being thrown at or being shot at. He grabs those rebounds, and those rebounds should be really when Ronald Highland's not on the court and it's Jaden Ivey. He should be running after those balls after getting rebounds and dunking it. Now, a lot of people say I'm being hard on this guy. I'm being tough on this guy, but what makes you and breaks you is your resilience to achieve your goals. If you want to see more minutes, then you're going to have to do the hard part of the job, and that means going to the basket, moving without the ball, seeing the court better. And I think one thing I don't like about the NBA, and I've said this before, is that they don't run plays. They allow Kay Cunningham and Duran or Isaiah Stewart. They run a pick and roll, and then they have Duncan Robinson run around, and they basically run just two plays. And out of these two plays, it's either Kay Cunningham doing a pick and roll, passing the ball to Duncan after the pick and roll to a 3-pointer, and then the ball just rotates 1 or 2 times. And this is the issue when you have, even with Ronald Holland and Jaden Ivey, when you have those guys at the wing, and they're usually, especially Jaden Ivey, he'll usually sit around the 3-point line by the corner. It doesn't matter if it's the right wing or the left wing corner. He'll stand there and let Kay Cunningham and Duncan Robinson or Jalen Duran run the play. So everything is super isolated. It's a 1-2 punch thing. Where in reality, you want to be able to move the ball so that it goes from a pick and roll, then it goes to Duran, and then when the help comes is when you dish it out to Duncan. Now Duncan played pretty well last game against LA Clippers, I think. But that was the game that Jaden Ivey should have really been able to just shoot, make baskets, just do stuff. But instead, it just seems like he's scared. Or I don't know what it is. I think he's just unsure of himself. And I'm going to tell you honest, JB Burkins, Birkenstaff, you know, people want him traded. Did they want Jaden Ivey traded? And you can't trade someone with no value. You can't trade someone who should be your number two player. Your number one two player should not be Isaiah Stewart shooting three pointers. And basically, that's basically what it is. So you have Kay Cunningham, then you have Duran. Now, if you got a double pick, if you have two guys on Duran would have to give the ball. But that doesn't always work out. Okay. So, and then when you have Dennis Jenkins taking the ball up to court when Kay Cunningham is on the bench, and then you still have Ivy staring down to Dennis Jenkins and watching him and Isaiah Stewart do the pick and roll, that doesn't work either. So do I think Detroit will trade or find a player or two to come to Detroit? You know, I heard the GM said they don't want to make trades, they kind of like the mesh. And to be honest with you, I don't know if there's any value in trading anybody right now. Because if you trade Ryan Holland or you trade Tobias Harris, you give up two guys. Well, you give up Ron Holland to just be the hustle man. And then you get rid of Tobias Harris, who's the veteran, and he shouldn't really be starting the game either. So, to be honest with you, it should be the second team should be like Jaden Ivey, Tobias Harris with Duncan on the floor, even though he's a first starter, and then Isaiah Stewart and the rest and then Ryan Holland. So you do, I mean, the the biggest thing that we have, the issue is that Tobias Harris is doing a lot of the back work of posting the players up when he shouldn't really have to. And I think that when you have someone like Isaiah Stewart, who's a rebounder and a defender, then you don't really want him to be on the 3-point line unless you're going off a fast break point system, right? And let's not forget about Asur Thompson. Asur Thompson is probably the most improved player in Detroit because he's able to dribble the basketball really well now, and he's able to actually pass the ball really well now. He sees the court better, so that's probably the biggest improvement in Detroit is probably Thompson. And I think that we were hoping that Jaden Ivey would be that guy that would make the biggest leap of uh, of of excellence. Now, some of you guys think uh, that Detroit should wait and wait and wait, but you may lose the value of Jaden Ivey sooner or later. And I don't know what Detroit should do with Jaden Ivey. I think Jaden Ivey needs to work on his dribbling skills, and I think he should work on his shooting. And I said this again, and I say this every single time. He shoots the ball like he's 5'9". And what I mean by that, his release point is so low, and he's like 6'4", that the ball does not come off his fingertips correctly. He's basically shooting an arrow right to the rim. And I would tell him this. as much as I don't really like Michael Jordan, is that Michael Jordan had a higher release point, and so did Larry Bird, and so did Isaiah Thomas. And Cade Cunningham has a higher release point. Better basketball players have a higher release point, not because it's going to get blocked, but because the rotation of the ball and how the ball carries in the air and how it comes down into the net is going to make the world difference. And I really do think that he needs to go find someone like Larry Bird and just practice on his shot. It's going to feel really uncomfortable, but if he doesn't fix his shot and he keeps giving up on turnovers and he doesn't drive to the basket for rebounds, or when he does have the ball and he doesn't score, that's how you're going to lose your job. And I can see him going to a team like Charlotte. I think that this year or next year might be his contract year, and Detroit may not even pick him up. This probably be the best thing for Detroit is if Jaden Ivey does not learn how to shoot better in his mid range and layups and his 3-point shots and create his own shot like Cade Cunningham can, he's going to lose his job. He's going to lose his position in Detroit Pistons basketball. And he'll probably go to Charlotte or the Pelicans because we won't sign him for an extension. And a trade would really be a good thing for us to do sooner than later. Maybe we'll get a second round draft pick for 2028. I don't know. It could happen. But there you go, folks. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going yabba, gotta do about everything about it. So, cheers. If you like this podcast, follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you download your podcast shows. You can also watch me on YouTube and the Patreon. Peace and love, and take care of yourself. And again, Happy New Year. Thank you.